welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to explain why I've decided not to make Seoul, South Korea my primary base abroad heading into the future. Disclaimer, I love Seoul, South Korea. I love so many things about Korean culture and Korean people. I've lived here for about 6 months over the past year. I've worked for a Korean company. I've done digital nomading. I dated here. I had friends here. Okay, I've done it all. If there's a way to live here, I've done it, I've practiced it. I've lived in a small apartment that's cheaper. I've lived in a bigger apartment that's more expensive. I've used the apps. I have the full cohesive Korean experience as much as a Westerner can over that period of time. But these are just personal reasons for why it's not maybe the best base for me abroad, but it's still an amazing country. I will be very, very disappointed if I don't make it back here within the next few years to at least do a month or two working sabbatical and enjoying the culture here. So number one is the language barrier. And this is not the fault of the country. This is the fault of me. Okay, Korean is a difficult language to learn. And maybe some of you guys are thinking, Thomas, just learn the language, right? Just study it, just learn it, just put in the work. You guys have no idea, okay? My job here with the Korean company involved learning the language for a certain project, consulting project that I had. I spent a year trying to learn it to prep before I got here earlier this year. And it was still extremely difficult. I'm still very, very, I would say, in the more beginner stage. Now, I know a lot of useful phrases and words. I can pick up probably 25 to 30% of conversations going on, but I am far from being fluent or even somewhat acceptable in the language right now. And I think that's a lot of Westerners' experience, or people who are not familiar with more Eastern style languages. Okay, it takes a long time to learn and get good at Korean. And I've definitely improved over the last year quite a bit, but I'm nowhere where I need to be to really kind of fully unlock what's available in this culture and friendships and be able to talk to people and be able to socialize and get in the social groups that I want to for it to be a satisfying experience abroad. Now, a lot of Koreans know English, they can speak English. It's not that uncommon. But to really connect with people on a much deeper level, being able to speak their native tongue goes a long way. And they do appreciate the amount of Korean I know. And it does go a long way, but knowing even more, like for example, let's say I was as good at Korean as I am at Spanish. Okay, I speak Spanish. I'm not like an expert, but I'm decent enough that I can socialize and talk to people. If I could do it at that level here in Korea, my experience would be completely different. That's not the fault of the country, okay? That's the fault of me. But right now, I'm not there with Korean. I don't have the time to learn it to the degree I need to. And so that's what makes it a difficult base for me here abroad, is I just don't speak enough of the language, and that makes things difficult. And number two for me is the social climate and the way things are done socially. Again, this is not the fault of Korea. This is just how they do things. It's just how Eastern Asian societies are set up. Overall, I would say Koreans are incredibly helpful and polite people. I've never had a bad experience with a Korean. But to say that they're friendly and warm, I think is a different question, especially compared to places I've been in Latin America, for example. It's a different kind of social climate. Both can be good, both can have their positives and negatives. But for me, I'm abroad. I want to meet new people regularly. I want to be able to meet new people and socialize with them on a regular basis. And it can definitely happen in Korea, but it's usually within tighter social groups. I've definitely met people and friends through churches and through the work that I did, but just being able to build relationships faster, not within these sort of pre-screened groups, it's very difficult here, especially in Seoul, South Korea, which is more professionally minded. And if you go to smaller places in Korea, they're much more conservative. They're not as familiar with, expats and foreigners being here. So it's a bit of a difficult challenge. Korea is a very, very polite and high trust society, but socially people like to meet people, date, get close friends within their close social group. Where Latin America is a more low trust society, but people are more willing to meet friends kind of quickly right off the bat. So it's two different flavors. And for me, like I said, someone abroad, I want to make friends and build a social group. It would take a long time for me to do that here in Korea and learn the language. Probably take 2 or 3 years. And I don't know if I want to put in that much time and effort when I can go somewhere else, kind of speak most of the language already, and establish a social group faster. So just for me and my own pace, it's a lot easier for me to do that somewhere else. And Korea has just been a little more difficult for me on that end. It's not the fault of the country, it's just my personal preference. And for my personal preference, it's just not as socially warm enough as I would like I already get social coldness when I live in the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, where I am back in the US, right? When I go somewhere else, I want a little more of a warmer social climate. So in a way, I adjusted to Seoul and Korea very, very quickly. I know a lot of foreigners and Americans who are from the South or from other areas that are very socially warm. They really struggle to adapt to Korea. For me, like going from the Pacific Northwest to Korea, it wasn't actually that big of a jump because I was already used to kind of more a socially cold climate. It wasn't that big of a deal to me. But going forward, I would like a more socially warm climate, be able to meet people quickly, build social groups, and Korea has just been, it's a little more difficult for that. And that's just a personal preference of mine. And then the third reason why Korea will probably not be my long-term base abroad as a Christian man is the time zone issue. And sure, I've learned to adapt to it and I have my ways of doing it, but the time zone is not ideal. So if you're on the West Coast, essentially you have to jump back 8 hours and then the next day. So it's about 16 hours. I know we're about to hit daylight savings time, so it becomes more like 17 hours, okay? The hours are not ideal, not just for working, which I can kind of do work on my own hours, but making meetings and client calls and consultations and stuff, it becomes a big challenge. Okay, you're either doing really early mornings or really late nights. And then just stay in contact with friends and family. You're just on a different world. You're on a different universe, okay? Your time works completely differently. So staying in contact with friends and family is a little difficult, a little more difficult than I would like it. And, initially when you're only here for a few weeks, you're like, all right, whatever, it's the time zone. But over time, when you're trying to keep up with stuff that's going on in the US or keep up with friends and family or schedule meetings, whatever, it just becomes really hard and it slowly kind of grates on you over time, just the difficulty of this East Coast time zone. Again, that's not a Korea problem, that's a me problem. That's a me having my job back in the US and having my family back in the US problem. But again, for me, it's something that I've noticed over time. It's just a big difficulty. For me living in Latin America instead, it's basically all East Coast time zone. It's basically no problem, right? You're still operating in sort of the Western frame of things. But over here, Asia operates on its own time, and that's fine. They got their own thing going. But for me, trying to juggle both worlds is hard with that time zone change. Just whether I'm back in the US trying to communicate with people in Korea or in Korea communicating with people back in the US, like I said, maybe in the beginning, it won't seem like that big of a deal, but over time, it gets really grating. It's really tough to schedule anything, talk to family at a time that makes sense when you're not working, when they're not working. It was harder than I expected over this period of time. And I think that's just something that I'm not really into dealing with long-term. Now, I would love to come back to Korea, like I said, for a month or something like that and enjoy it. I think it's amazing for that and for me. But over long periods of time, it got isolating because it was tough for me to call my friends and family back home. It was tough to build social circles very, very quickly. And it can become an isolating place in that way. And so for those reasons, it's not the best fit for me long-term. Like I said, it may end up being a good place for me long-term in the future. It has been a decent year so far in Korea. I would say overall was a very positive experience. But after assessing all those things, I do want to try other locations. Who knows? I may end up back here. I have no idea, but I'm not so sold and in love with it that all right, this is it. This is the place I want to stay. I definitely need to test out some other lifestyles, some other different time zones, some other different social climates to see if that works better for me. So that's just the reality there. If you lived in South Korea or you are curious about it, leave a comment down below or a question if you have any questions about life here. Like I said, I've gotten as much as I can as a Westerner for the last year living here in Korea as I possibly could. So I have a lot of information. If you want to ask any questions, just leave a comment down below. Those are my 3 personal reasons. I love South Korea overall. Okay, I love Seoul. I've been to some of the rural areas. I've been everywhere. I've been almost everywhere in Korea. I'm going to Busan here in a few weeks. Okay, so I've seen and done as much as one can, and it's an amazing culture. The people are pretty awesome. My church experience here was great. Dating was very good when I was here. I don't really have a lot of negative things to say where it was immediately I'm like, oh, I can't do Korea because of this big thing. It's just a little bit of small things that added up over time that made me want to go, I really like it, but these things are making it kind of tough for me to commit long term. So those are the reasons. Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more content like this. And anyways, I'll see you guys next time.